I like some of the games this week. I know you already did Ringer and Gambling Show. I didn't hear it yet because it's not up. But the big game and the hardest one to figure out in a while, and I think the most even great matchup we've had all season is this Vikings-Packers game in Minnesota. And the Vikings, it's around 1.5. Right now it's Vikings 1.5. You could make really strong cases for each team. I think there's a lot of public kind of love and affection for the Packers right now, which would make me a little nervous for them. Green Bay lost to them earlier in the year. And Green Bay is 10-2 in the last 12 weeks with 2 Detroit losses. And people are leaning Green Bay in this house. And we have to treat it like a playoff game. Means more to Minnesota because if they can win this, they beat Detroit next week. They're the 1 seed.
Right.
Green Bay's pretty locked into the 5 or 6 seed. Not sure it matters. Where are you leaning on this one?
I'm inclined to look at that Green Bay side, mainly because of just how effective they've looked on both sides of the ball. Their defense has just been so impressive. They're able to put pressure on opposing quarterbacks. They're still generating turnovers. There was skepticism earlier in the year. I'll put my hand up about, their defense was producing what felt like an outsized number of turnovers, and that was the way that they were able to look so good defensively. But they've continued to do so, and now it looks like their offense is healthy. And now Jacobs is they're really leaning into that run game. And it looks like last year where Green Bay went on this run at the end of the season when Aaron Jones was finally healthy, and he led the NFL over the last 5 weeks and into the playoffs. Aaron Jones for Green Bay in rushing, and I kind of feel like they're gearing up in the same direction with Jacobs. It's not intended to be disrespectful in any way, shape, or form towards Minnesota. I mean, it is the line, I think, is super fair, and I think the money line is -108 for both teams. Like that's how even this is in the book. And I think that's totally appropriate. Green Bay outgained Minnesota the first time they played by
I watched that game though. That game was over. They were up like 4 touchdowns. And then there was a lot of garbage time stuff with Green Bay. And it kind of belatedly somewhat became a game, but not really.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was a lot of end of the game shit.
These teams tend to split against each other just historically. It's an important division game. So my lean would be Green Bay, but if the Vikings go win, like who's going to be shocked?
So I guess where I've landed in this game is if it was in Green Bay, I would like Green Bay. And because it's in Minnesota, I like Minnesota more.
Fine.
I just think these teams are dead even.
Yeah.
And you throw in the home field. There's one other piece with Minnesota though. First of all, I do think they're better than people realize. And I and we've talked about this a bunch on this podcast, but they became a but team. And we've had but teams before that I thought was justified. Like there was that Cousins Vikings team a couple years ago that we were like, what? This team's not good. What? This record's ridiculous. Look who they played. The Vikings are 8-0 with Hawkinson.
Yes.
Which I think matters.
Yeah.
The Vikings are 6th in DVOA. Green Bay is 3rd. The Vikings are 2nd against the run. They're 1st in creating turnovers. They have a top 5 pass rush. But the thing I really like the most about them is these 2 receivers they have with Hawkinson. I always feel like they can get a drive if they need it.
Yeah.
And if this game's in the 4th quarter and they're home, I just like their chances to go down the field. Like one stat that I think is, I saw this and I was like, how is this the best total? But it is. They lead the league in least amount of percentage they've trailed when they're on offense in the game. They've only trailed for 22% of their snaps on offense. They've been trailing in the game, which basically means they're always ahead, they're always in charge, they're always in the lead, which is good for home. But then they also have the ability at the end of games to get a drive if they need it and to make a big play if they need it. And Green Bay is going to do cover 2. Like their defense actually matches up pretty good with the Vikings. But I like this Vikings team. And to me, it's like, if you believe in this Vikings team, you kind of have to take them this week. So if you don't, you're basically saying, I don't believe in this team.
I don't know. Do we go that far?
Yeah, I think this is a playoff game. I do. I think this is playoff rules this week. I think we have to approach it like playoff manifesto.
I don't know. I don't know what's Green Bay, doing if it really is a playoff game, right? Like that's
I'm saying for Minnesota, it's a playoff game. They win this game, they have a chance to be the 1 seed. They play Detroit. There's also Conspiracy Bill would like to enter this for 1 second.
Go ahead.
There's no Sunday night Week 18 NBC game right now. It's either Minnesota, Detroit, or Rams, Seattle, which we might not get if the Rams just beat Arizona this week, which we're going to have coming up in $1 million picks. The only other possibility is Minnesota, Detroit, but Minnesota has to win this game. And if that doesn't happen, now we're into who'd you have? Carolina versus Atlanta?
Atlanta. If Atlanta
Carolina, Atlanta, Sunday night.
Yeah, but that would be good because then you'd have Bryce Young against Michael Penix.
How is that good to have Carolina, Atlanta as the last game of the season? That's not good at all. Carolina has 4 wins.
It would be hilarious is what it would be.
I just wonder.
It's just funky, but go ahead.
I just wonder, does Minnesota get some calls in this game?
Well, they will be at home. They'll get home calls, you expect, for sure. I don't, this one is just a stay away because it's
we're not
dead even. Away. You don't get any, I don't get any value on either
Can't
side.
Stay away. This is, we have a big little nest egg of $1 million picks, and this is the best game in a while. We have to put a bet on it.
Go ahead.
Let me give you something that I thought was interesting. Green Bay since week 5. They're 9-2 with 2 Detroit losses, right?
Yeah.
Here's who they beat. Matthew Stafford in week 5 with no Puka, no Kupp.
Yes.
Kyler Murray. CJ Stroud, no Collins in that game. Trevor Lawrence barely beat him. He had his best game of the year. He threw for 300 plus yards against them. They won by 3. Caleb Williams. They were up. Chicago's up the whole game and should have won, and then Green Bay won it late. Brandon Allen on San Francisco. Tua on cold weather on Thursday night Thanksgiving. Geno Smith, and whatever the fuck was going on with the New Orleans quarterbacks last week. Those are all their wins. They haven't played anything remotely approaching Sam Darnold, Hawkinson, Addison, and Jefferson, and Aaron Jones. This is by far the best complete offense they've played
now
since
do
week
Minnesota.
4. Well, I know Minnesota is the same thing, but I'm saying you can't use that case against Minnesota and then not use it against Green Bay.
Well, I think they're in very similar positions because this is a gigantic step up in class for Minnesota. Minnesota's defense hasn't seen anything like this Green Bay offense. Look at these offenses that Minnesota has seen since they lost to the Rams in week 6 or 7, whatever it was.
Yeah,
they played the Colts with Anthony Richardson.
Ooh.
They played the Jaguars. They played the Titans. They played the Bears. They played Kyler and the Cardinals, which was a huge comeback game. Right, the Cardinals were up. That should have been a Cardinals win.
Not a great Vikings game.
They got Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. In his triumphant return to Minnesota, which ended his career in Atlanta and maybe his career in NFL football. And the Bears and the Seahawks. The best game, the best win was going into Seattle and coming down to the wire. But
that's the irony of this. Both teams' most impressive win the last 2.5 months was Seattle, who also might not be good.
Well, they're kind of they're good enough to be fighting for a playoff spot. Yeah. But yes. If we're going to do that, we have to do it for both teams. And the interesting thing to me, you made the case for Minnesota's offense looking good. You want them with the ball at the end of the game. I would say the exact same thing about Green Bay. To me, it's not that dissimilar from the handicapping of that Thursday night Detroit Green Bay game, where it came down to which team had the ball at the end.
It's a great game,
right?
I don't think there's a wrong answer. I just feel like people have tilted more toward the Packers, and I feel like it's dead even. And I think
Minnesota's favored.
Well, they get the -1.5 because they're home.
But I'm just saying,
if this was in Green Bay, Green Bay would be -1.5 over Minnesota.
True, but like the public hasn't jumped in yet with a big perspective.
So you're thinking it's a stay away?
I mean, if you want to put something small in it so that you can say we did it and it's fun, and then Minnesota wins, it's like excellent. Now we have Minnesota and Detroit in Week 18 for the 1 seed. That would be awesome.
So we're taping this at 11:17 Pacific time.
Yeah,
December 26th, Thursday.
True.
The line is completely flipped. It's now Green Bay -1.5 over Minnesota.
So somebody
FanDuel.
Stepped in. That's a
somebody
syndicate
stepped
play.
in.
Yeah.
That's a syndicate play. So the line moved 3 points, and now it's Minnesota -102, plus 1.5, and Green Bay -116.
Somebody's taking a stand.
Does that make you nervous or what?
I honestly think that we're going to see one or two more of these over the course of the next two days. I bet the rival.
So you think Green Bay is going to get to -2.5?
No, I think somebody will come back in in the other direction, and
I got
you. It's going to flip again.
Vikings being +1.5 means they're now in tease territory.
Yeah, that is. You would want to do it right away. Right away.
Well, we can do it right away.
Wait.
We're taping $1 million picks as we speak.
Good point.
Any interest in throwing them in with the Miami Dolphins in Cleveland?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be rain.
Tease Miami down,
or we could basically do, tease what is Miami, 6.5? Yeah. Tease
to a half.
No, tease Miami down to money line and do Miami +7.5.
The only thing that would concern me about the Miami situation.
Well, there's a lot of things that concern me. I don't know. You're going to go with only?
The single most prominent is if DTR, anything happens to him at quarterback. What I want to see is where Jameis is listed in terms of
Did you read? I was on Brown's Reddit today, which is one of the darkest places in the internet.
Poor
it's
guys.
Just absolutely brutal. There's even on Brown's Reddit, there's even should we make a run at Kirk Cousins this offseason?
No.
Yeah, that's a thread on Brown's Reddit.
Oh, my God.
It's dark, man. It's some of the darkest shit you'll see. But Brown's Reddit was saying that apparently Jameis is hurt too. And if anything happens with DTR, it's Bailey Zappi time.
Oh, well, now I'm feeling better. Okay, now we can do Miami. Fine. Now we're good.
It's Bailey Zappi, injured Jameis, or it's DTR who has 1 touchdown and 9 career picks.
Well, I thought they already said that DTR is going to start. My concern was that DTR would start. Something would happen to him, and then Jameis would come in and throw 4 touchdowns.
DTR's playing not 100% healthy, though.
Well, I mean, I just need to I want certainty that Jameis will not come in, because if Jameis comes in, then I feel like that's
for some reason you're worried about Jameis. To me, I'm not worried about Cleveland's offense in this game. I'm worried about the Dolphins in the rain just doing
I understand.
Classic Dolphins stink bomb.
We don't have to put them in a teaser. I mean, there's other good legs. Dallas is a pretty good teaser leg.
Well, the reason I brought them up for a teaser is just, at some point, these teams, the franchises are kind of steering them toward a top 5 pick, right? Yes. I don't think the Giants want to win. The Raiders are stupid.
Agreed.
Like, they couldn't help themselves last week. But there's certain teams that I just feel like are good with not winning another game.
Yeah.
And
Giants
Cleveland, to me, feels like one of them. Like, if you're Cleveland, Bailey Zappi's the move this week. We had Bailey Zappi on the Pats. He is not a competent quarterback. You want to put him out against Miami next week. You want to bench or you want to rest like a defensive starter who's a little banged up. Like, there's subtle stuff you can do to make sure you don't win again. Because
for sure.
Because there's a couple, like Tennessee plays Jacksonville. Both those teams are 3-12. One of them are going to be 4-13 after 4-12 after that game. So Cleveland can jump up a spot there. The Pats might beat the Chargers for all we know. Like they might be able to nudge up.
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking about. And plus Miami really needs the game. They're still in the playoff race.
Yeah, still in the race for sure.
So maybe because I have another tease I want to do with the two LA teams.
Okay.
So maybe we'll mark down something with Vikings Dolphins just for fun. Next one, and I'm split on this one too, is Bengals Broncos. You said on the Ringer Gambling Show you like the Bengals -3 in this game in Denver in the rain. What's your case?
No, I don't. Wait, I think it's at home. I think it's in Cincinnati.
Hold on, let me do that again, Kyle. Did I fuck this up? Yeah. You said on the Ringer Gambling Show that you like Cincy at home -3 in what's going to be bad weather. They're kind of technically alive still. Denver needs a game. This is weirdly a playoff game in some ways.
Right. Right. No, I think both teams will treat it like a playoff game. And this is exactly why my
Let's roll, baby. Welcome in. It is the Week 17 edition of the Ringer Sunday pregame right here on FanDuel TV and on YouTube TV as we get you set for a Sunday of NFL action. Let's see what the wise guys have in store. We welcome in Cousin Sal, Joe House, Raheem Palmer, John Jastremski, and Cousin Sal, it's only fair. I have done nonstop complaining about being on the wrong side of so many of these bad beats throughout the 2024 NFL season. I have to be fair and balanced. That's what we do here on the Ringer Sunday pregame. I finally, my friend, was on the right side of one with the Cincinnati Bengals and the insanity that ensued. Clock management optional between Zach Taylor and Sean Payton, but a nice -3 cover for your boy, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals still alive in the playoff hunt.
Wow. You know what? You should have to be quiet for the next 10 bad beats, because I think that was the worst beat of the year for Denver. I mean, has Sean Payton figured out if he's going for the tie yet or what? I can't imagine. They could have blown that game 7 different times. Denver could have covered any different way. And for God's sakes, Joe Burrow did it again, and the Bengals are still alive. Congratulations, JJ. I think you're the only one in the country who capitalized on that.
Well, listen, Raheem, you hit at this when we were like going back and forth as we're watching these games on Saturday afternoon. Why didn't the Bengals just play for the field goal? Some of the coaching was insane, but I think we get the result we wanted from a juice standpoint going into Week 18, because from an intrigue level, Denver goes and wins that game. All 7 of the AFC playoff spots are wrapped up. Now you have a couple more meaningful games. We got to figure out what Kansas City is going to do. So we like storylines. We like a little bit of drama. I'm glad Cincinnati found a way, right, Dream?
Yeah, I'm very glad they found a way because, for multiple reasons. Obviously, we have our win pool with the Ringer, and I have the Cincinnati Bengals. But also, when you're speaking on the NFL playoffs, we all want to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in the postseason. We don't want to see Bo Nix. We don't want to see Tua. I'm sorry, JJ. But we want to see the Cincinnati Bengals. We want to see the best teams in the postseason, and a potential first-round playoff matchup between the Bengals and the Bills sounds very exciting to me.
Incredibly juicy. Now, long way to go before we're getting Cincinnati in the playoffs. You need Carson Wentz to win next week. You need the Colts to lose a game. You need the Dolphins to lose a game. So we'll figure out all that mumbo jumbo when we're sitting here, same time, same place, breaking down Week 18. But House, before we get to all the good stuff we have coming up here on this Sunday, I think it's worth mentioning, and you love this, and our buddy Cousin Sal loves this. If you have just been having some fun with the favorites just winning outright in these Week 17 games, Chiefs outright, Ravens outright, 3 favorites outright on Saturday. The favorites, my friend, in those money line parlays, just what the doctor ordered.
JJ, I love it. Cousin Sal loves it. The Podfather loves it. All he's been doing is playing money line parlays and $1 million picks. I think he turned $1 million into $2 million just like that. But these favorites since Week 5 have been absolutely crushing, way over 75%, just winning outright, and 6-0 up to this moment. I mean, what could possibly go wrong today?
And this slate, considering we had 2 games on Christmas, a game on Thursday, 3 on Saturday, you really had to dig deep to try to find plays that you like. It is a limited Sunday card, but it does have a main event that we will dive into a little bit later on in the show. We have some guest picks to come. We have man's best bet. We'll sniff out the rat lines, but it's time. Week 17, second to last week of the regular season. Let's wisen up. Cousin Sal, you may have had your most dramatic win yet in Week 16 between the Dolphins and the Niners, a game that appeared to be destined for an under. You get Devon Achane not taking the knee, saying, you know what? Cousin Sal's got a record to maintain. He has glory that needs to be preserved, and Devon Achane should maybe get little late holiday gift from our guy Cousin Sal after scoring that touchdown and getting you an over in Dolphins and Niners on Sunday last week. But Cousin Sal, it's yet another win. What do we have for a Week 17 encore?
Yeah, I'm 14-2, and I'll be the first one to admit the over in the San Francisco-Miami game was a stocking full of crap. It really was. But the good ones get lucky, JJ. That's what happens. I want to move this to 15-2, and I'm taking House's Washington Commanders under 24.5 points. I lost a couple of points here. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I win these games anyway. You know how it is. 3 of the last 4 Falcon games, they have held opponents to 17 points or fewer. Atlanta's ball control offense has put them in the top 3 in time of possession in the last 3 games. I really like this. I think Atlanta, much like my picks, Washington was full of crap the last few weeks. Jaden Daniels has been great, but come on, a tad lucky, maybe a tad unmotivated in this game after an emotional division matchup against Philly. And by the way, after teams play Philly, this is weird, they win at a 30% rate. They're the least profitable prior opponent in this spot over the last 4 years. So I think Atlanta plays tough. Washington stays under that 24.5. I'm going to go 15-2. My kids had a very nice Christmas. I shared the wealth of my 14-2. I bought them each an Atari 2600 too. I splurged, fellas. Let's do it, 15-2.
The only thing that would have made that a better purchase would have been a Mario Kart Super NES, bringing it back to my childhood, Cousin Sal. Sorry, I'm a little too young for Atari. Now, you are running away. Credit to you. Raheem, you are fully entrenched in the 2 spot. We'll get to your wisest wager in a little bit. But House, the battle that remains between the wise guys, who's going to stay out of the cellar? You and I are dead even going into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. So I'm giving you the T-box. I'm a man of honor. Who's going to win these final 2 weeks? Week 17, House, what do you got?
JJ, as 1 year comes to a close and a new one begins, it's a time for contemplation. We think of some of life's most important adages. One of them, always stay close to the river of money. This year, the river of money favorites, we talked about that, and the Cousin Sal's wisest wager. So what I'm going to do is jump right on the Cousin Sal's back. He has room for me. He told me. If Cousin Sal says Washington is going under on his team total, then I'm playing the under 46.5 in this game. There's bad weather in the forecast. Cousin Sal talked about Atlanta wanting to run the ball and play ball control. Reminder, this is a rookie quarterback in his first road game, and this is a playoff game for them. I think they're going to not try and put too much pressure on Michael Penix. Let's just go ahead and let the weather see these young quarterbacks in all their glory and let them go slog it out in a pouring rainstorm.
I was about to roast you because I thought you were just going to say, hey, I'm tailing Cousin Sal, and that's my wisest wager, and I'm going to keep it going with that sort of theme. No. I'm giving you a pass here.
I mean, if we want to go 4-0, it's not a bad little plot. Yeah.
No, that's all well and good, but you got to make your own picks. That's what we do around here. I'm glad House did, going with the under, and I get it. Sloppy conditions, rookie quarterback on the road. We'll see what Michael Penix has in store for his second game, first start on the road as an NFL quarterback. Now, last week, guys, I gave out the Los Angeles Rams against the New York Jets. Sean McVay, money covering the spread in the month of December. And I think a lot of people are going to be confused because they're going to be watching the show. And I have destroyed the New York Jets all season. I'm going to hop on board here in Week 17 and hold my nose. And I understand it is a limited card to choose from. I am taking the New York Jets to go and cover the 9.5 against the Buffalo Bills. Couple of different reasons here. Number one, What is the motivation for Buffalo in this game? They're basically entrenched in a number 2 seed. They have 2 chances to go and get themselves a win. Are they going to go all out in week 17 with a beat up Josh Allen, with a lot of injuries on defense? Highly skeptical of that. Then let's peel back the layer with the New York Jets. Yes, the Jets stink. Yes, the Jets are 4-11. Let's think about their 9 losses. They're all close. They're all within margin. They're all within 1 score. Outside of Arizona in the middle of the year and outside of the San Francisco game in week 1, this is a team that plays games and loses games in excruciating fashion. Why is that going to change late in the year here? I think the Jets and the Bills play a tight, competitive, spirited game. I think Buffalo will probably find a way to win, but on a day in which you're not getting a whole lot to choose from, I'm going to grab 9.5 points and hope that the Jets continue to do what they have done throughout this year. Find a way to lose, but keep it within 9.5 points. Jets, 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 Jets. Now, Raheem, you're in second place for a Wise Wager title. You are actually taking the game of the day. We're all going with unders and the team total unders. I'm taking the Jets, for goodness sakes. But you said, give me the Packer-Viking game, which is by far and away the best game on the schedule for today. And you have a pick. Let's hear.
Yeah, let's go with the Green Bay Packers plus 1.5. If you ask me, you could take the money line. You could even sell points up to -5 on the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers right now, they're super motivated. This could be the difference between playing a playoff game in Philadelphia or playing a playoff game in Atlanta or Tampa Bay. And the way I look at this matchup is like this. Look, these two teams played earlier in the year. The Packers, Jordan Love, he was injured, coming back from an injury, and they got off to a slow start in that game. I mean, you had 2 missed field goals and 2 interceptions, which led to a short field, which made it 28-0, and it probably should have been about 14-6. But this Packers team is a different team right now. Jordan Love is healthy. And, you know, they're rolling. They scored 30 points in the last 5 games. And I look at this Vikings team, and I'm not that impressed. Yes, they've won 8 consecutive games, but they've come against the Colts, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Bears twice, the Cardinals, the Falcons, and the Seahawks. Only 2 of those teams have a winning record. And the Falcons, when they played them, Kirk Cousins, he threw up all of them himself. And then last week against the Seahawks, you're talking about a team that was a face masking penalty on a sack away from winning that game. And this Vikings team, they've won 8 one-score games. They have to regress to the mean at some point in time. Oh, wow, y'all shutting me down already?
That's the first time I think we've ever thrown the graphic up for our guy, Raheem Palmer. A lot of astute analysis, not a believer in the correlation of the Vikings continuing these one-score wins throughout this month and maybe into January. I have some thoughts on the Packers that we'll get to later on in the show. But Raheem rolling with Green Bay. We got more on that Packer-Viking game. Tate Frazier, who might be popping bubbly in North Carolina with his Chargers going to the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh, Bill Belichick. What a time for Tate. He's going to be scratched before you know it. You got a guest pick for us. Let's hear.
What's up, Wise Guys? Tate Frazier here, host of Through the Ringer. Good to see you guys. Excited to have the Wise Guys out for Wild Card Weekend. Hopefully it goes better than that meetup back in 1957. But let's talk Week 17, and let's talk about this NFC North showdown. Obviously, we got the Packers taking on the Vikings. We saw these two teams back in Week 4. It was an epic game. Jordan Love's first game back from injury. He threw 3 picks in that one, and that's why in this game, I like the Minnesota defense. Anytime touchdown plus 650. Let's take a big swing. Let's take a long shot. Let's see if they can get another touchdown celebration dance going. But I'm going to take the Packers to win this game. I think they get some revenge. They've scored over 30 points in 5 straight games. I like the way this team is trending. The defense is playing really well. And I do think with all the attention that Minnesota is rightfully getting this week at 13-2, looking like they could end up being eventually the 1 seed if things play their way, I do think that the Green Bay Packers come to town and they give these guys, and unfortunately, an unmerry Christmas in this one. So I'm going to go with the Packers to win this game and to cover, but I like Minnesota defense anytime touchdown plus 650.
I love a little chutzpah from one of our guest picks. That's what we got from our guy Tate Frazier, because how many times have we gotten anytime touchdowns? Oh, Josh Allen anytime touchdown. Saquon anytime touchdown. Yeah, astute analysis. I love a long shot, and the Minnesota Vikings to maybe get a Jordan Love pick six to the house, or the blitzing Brian Flores defense to maybe get something crazy to happen. Plus 650, I like it. We got more on that Packer-Viking game in a matter of moments. Yeah, it's a big game. There's a lot of thoughts, a lot of analysis. It's time to sniff out some rats. Let's do it for Week 17. Colonel Sal, I'm going to let you start this one off. The Packers and the Vikings is a rat? Please explain.
Well, I'm still a little confused over Tate. He's taking the Vikings defense to score, but the Packers to win, but the Vikings to get the one. I don't know what he's talking about. I think he's a little experimenting with some weird stuff over there in North Carolina, but I love the guy. Listen, for my rat, I'm going Green Bay, Minnesota. And listen, I just don't love the line here. And I know Raheem has a real strong case for one of the teams. And by the way, Raheem talked me off a rat a couple weeks ago. I thought the Panthers-Cowboys was a rat, and Raheem's like, no, it's not a rat. Just take the Cowboys. And they thrashed them. But here's why I think this is weird. It's a tic-tac special, 1.5 calories. When one team is 1.5, that was the Vikings. Then it flipped to Green Bay being favored. Now it flipped back to Minnesota. And why are they only 1.5? The Vikings have been dynamite. They have fewer losses and are home and actually have something to play for if Detroit gets tripped up here. And Green Bay is without Quay Walker, Jair Alexander. They have some offensive linemen out. This game doesn't mean anything for the Packers, yet they're begging you to take the Vikings by making them an underdog or a slight favorite in this case. I think it's a stay away, frozen Minnesota Fats rat here, because the other part of this, Raheem, is they need this for Sunday Night Football, right? Detroit and Minnesota. I mean, they're down to like 1 or 0 options. So in that regard, you might see Minnesota get some calls. I don't know. I'm saying it's a stay away.
All right, you're staying away. I'm siding with our guy Raheem because I also like the Green Bay Packers in this spot. But you're right. Hey, Sunday Night Football, Detroit, Minnesota, maybe a little conspiracy theory from our guy, Cousin Sal. Raheem, your rat line is my team. Dolphins, Browns, and I understand why. Go ahead.
Yeah, so they've downgraded. Well, actually, let me get to the actual rat line. My rat line is the Dolphins, -3.5 at the Cleveland Browns. And they've downgraded Tua to doubtful. And this game is basically the Spider-Man meme. I mean, you look at the Dolphins, 1-3 without Tua this season, averaging 10 points per game. You look at the Cleveland Browns. They're not starting Jameis. They're not starting Deshaun Watson. They're starting Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They're only averaging 13 points a game, and they're 1-4 with DTR in the starting lineup. So both of these quarterbacks, DTR and Tyler Huntley, they stink. And then you look at the Dolphins, they're probably going to be missing Jalen Waddle. And, Tyreek Hill, he has a wrist injury. So both of these offenses are terrible. I don't know how you could back either one of these teams in this spot. And, I think, one of our panelists might be backing the Browns, which I understand, but I don't want to back DTR. So this is a complete rat and a complete stay away from me.
Raheem, if Tua was playing in this game, does it fit the rat stay away description, or is that basically based upon the info that we got from Schefter on Saturday?
Yeah, that's basically that. I mean, no Tua, this is no bad. I think if Tua was in the lineup, I think the Dolphins would win this game rather easily.
Yes, and especially considering the fact that the Dolphins make a name for beating up on bad teams. Browns fit that description, but no Tua. I get where it's a little fishy, a little stinky. Okay, House, we got 2 down, 2 to go. What's your rat line?
I'm looking at this Tampa-Carolina game, and I feel like I must be missing something because the line keeps moving in favor of Tampa extra points. It was at 8.5. It's up to 9.5 now. Tampa is laying 9.5 points against Carolina. Carolina has been one of the best teams against the spread over the last 7 weeks. They covered 6 of the last 7. This looks like a classic inflated line because one team, it's a must-win situation for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it definitely is. But we see this every single season. Some points get added to the line. The public jumps in and is like, well, Tampa's got to take care of his business, and Carolina stinks. Well, Carolina does stink, but they've been very good in terms of defending Baker Mayfield in particular on the pass, the defensive coordinator for Carolina, a guy named Evero. I'm sure I can't say that 10 times quickly. He's been in his bag against Baker. Last year, Tampa ekes out a win. Baker's 20 of 32 for 137 yards, no touchdowns. They win week 18 last year, 14 of 29 for Baker, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. And then just week 13, Tampa in overtime, Baker's 21 of 33 for 235 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. What I'm saying is that a 10-point line is not sustainable here. It's a stay away, but if you want to get on Carolina, I'm not against it.
Look, stay away. I get it. Carolina's been in a lot of these games. You're always leery of that team that desperately needs to win. I thought I was going to be in on Carolina earlier in the week, but, we're seeing 8.5 on the graphic. You could find 10 if you want to go bet the Panthers, the way this line is moving. So I totally
Hubbard
get it.
is out. I mean, that's part of the thing that people are factoring in.
That jacked it up a little bit, for sure. But a running back injury, I don't know how much you want to put into that, but hey, be that as it may. Guys, my rat line, the Vegas Raiders and the New Orleans Saints. How can anybody want to lay points with Aiden O'Connell and the Vegas Raiders on the road? I mean, can we say that one more time? Laying points with Aiden O'Connell and the Vegas Raiders on the road. On the flip side, you have a dreadful New Orleans team with the Rattler quarterback that was beyond inept offensively on Monday night, playing a short week. We saw that against the Packers, and I know the Packers are not the Raiders, but you get my drift. Do you really want to go and wager on either one of these teams? I, for one, do not. We'll leave that rat in New Orleans. Let's hope we don't see it come Super Bowl time. Raiders, Saints, stay far, far away. Now, it's time to celebrate the new year in a way the only way possible is the wise guys get together and hit their first family meal. Let's do it. Week 17, fire away. We have come so close on these. We've hit 3 or 4 plenty of times, but has not been the winning formula. So we have one last chance to get it right before we kick off 2025. Sal, what are you bringing to the family meal?
All right, let's do it. And in a New Year's Eve theme here, I like the pigs in the blanket. I like all the old hors d'oeuvres handed around, and I don't even care what's on them. Like, the kids will throw confetti once the ball drops, and the confetti will get on the pigs in the blanket, and I don't just shake them off. I take it and eat it. It's not a bad topping. It really isn't. Try it for yourself. You'll thank me later. But I am going, as part of my family meal, Josh Allen, under 32.5 rushing yards. Listen, I'm not a good guest. I brought losers to this dinner, little dinner we've done together. Under in 4 of his last 5 at home rushing, 6 or fewer attempts in 5 of his last 6 at home. That right hand is hurt. So you might be onto something, JJ, where they just do enough to win against the Jets, although I'm not taking the Jets any point the rest of the year. I am betting Josh Allen to not carry the ball, not be as determined in his running ability. Just let Aaron Rodgers fail and win the game for the Bills. No risk with the MVP favorite, under 32.5 rushing yards. That's what I bring to the dinner table. Manja, fellas.
Totally get it. Josh Allen may be waiting until the end of the year, come playoff time, to start unleashing that rushing ability. Okay, House. It's your turn. I know you're hungry. I know you ate a ton over the Christmas holiday, but there's still extra room in that stomach of yours. What's next?
Definitely some room for some delicious duck crostini on New Year's Eve, because Bucky Irving of the Oregon Ducks is in the mix to collect for us. Now, the duck crostini has a nice little goat cheese that goes along with the smoky duck and the crunch of the bread and everything. This Bucky Irving prop has been going through the roof the way that the crostini is going to go through the roof of my mouth. It was in the low 80s, now all the way up to 87.5 total rushing yards for Bucky Irving. I don't care. I would play it at 84.5, which is what I betted at. I'd play it all the way up to 90. Carolina against the run, dead last in running back rush yards per game at 141 yards per carry, 5.1. An opposing running back has 100 or more yards in 5 of the last 6 Panthers games. Bucky Irving was part of that with 152 yards against this Panthers defense in week 13. He leads the NFL in yards after contact at 3 yards. He's going to thrive in this matchup once again, and the Duck Crostini is going to bring us home.
Raheem, you and I are aligned in a game that we are picking from when it comes to our family meal? You're looking at a receiver prop. What would that be?
Yes, I'm bringing collard greens with black-eyed peas to the table. For those of you who don't know, eating black-eyed peas on New Year's Day is a Southern tradition. It's believed to bring good luck and prosperity in the new year. It dates back to the Civil War. You know, the greens, they represent paper money, and the black-eyed peas, they represent coins. So you definitely want to have some black-eyed peas for the new year. Anyway, we're going to go with Terry McLaurin, over 65.5 receiving yards. You look at the Atlanta Falcons, they allow the 5th most passing yards per game on the road, and they have a 29th ranked pressure rate. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, that defense is improving the last couple of weeks. They haven't played anybody, and I think Jaden Daniels is going to light this defense up, and I think Terry McLaurin is going to get plenty of opportunities. So let's go over 65.5 receiving yards for Terry McLaurin.
Can I tell you
Raheem,
why this show is great, JJ? I mean, we not only do we provide the best picks that money could buy or free, we give them out here, but we get a nice little history lesson about the Civil War from Raheem. I never knew that about
Hey,
the collard
listen.
greens and the money. What a show this is!
You never know what you're going to learn here on the Ringer Sunday pregame. But I'm glad our guy Raheem mentioned that Washington-Atlanta game. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to have a big day, and he is been a lot healthier. He has run the ball a lot more over the last few weeks. He has gone over this total for the last 5 games. I'm going to say he does it again. Give me Jaden Daniels over 48.5 rushing yards at -113. Hey, it's go time for the Washington Commanders and the rookie quarterback. I think he goes and puts on a show. Well, for our final show of 2024, we are unveiling a new segment. You know what that new segment may be? Raheem, it's like we're hanging with you in Vegas. Let's see what we got. Oh, baby, I feel like we're walking the runway with Raheem's models. Now, Raheem, you've been in the lab, and I don't know if the lab is going to be as delightful as that graphic we just saw, but what are you sharing with us here on this fine Sunday?
I'm giving you guys my top 10 power-rated teams according to my model. Yes, my top 10. We're going to go with the Lions, then the Ravens, then the Packers, then the Bills, and then the Chiefs. Yes, I know the Chiefs are 15-1, but if you look at the point differential, that's why it is. They've won a ton of one-score games, so that's why they're 5th. Then you go with the Philadelphia Eagles. Then you got the Vikings. Then you got the Bucks. Then you got the Chargers, and then the Broncos rounding out my top 10. So that's how I have the teams power rated according to my model. So I mean, you can bet accordingly. Obviously, there's some teams like the Kansas City Chiefs that supersede all of the models.
And I have to admit, Raheem, I am surprised the Broncos found your way into that top 10. And the other surprise I think I would have there is how high you have Baltimore based upon the math. And that's because of the prolific nature of their offense, I have to assume.
Yeah, definitely the prolific nature of the offense, but the fact that they beat the Buffalo Bills. So when you beat, you know, like a top 10 or top 5 team, it ups your rating.
Can I say what I'm surprised by? I'm surprised that Raheem wasn't fazed at all by that super sexy graphic. But then now that I think about it, he's been in Vegas for the last 6 months, so everything makes sense.
Yeah, that's nothing for you, right, Raheem?
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing. I mean, you got to remember, I DJ'd for half of my life, too. So I'm used to seeing models any and everywhere. So this is not new.
Got to try harder. Yeah.
It's called, Sal, being a seasoned vet. That's what our guy Raheem Palmer is. The definition of been there and done that. We got a lot more coming your way in this Week 17 edition of the Ringer Sunday pregame. We will have man's best bet. We have the guys putting together their SGPs, and we'll see where we are aligned. The Lone Wolf was very successful in Week 16. What wise guy is going to be a lone wolf on the Sunday slate of NFL action? Find out right here on YouTube and FanDuel TV.
The all LA money parlay.
Yes, this is wonderful. Great.
Rams home for the
Yeah.
Cardinals. All the
Yes.
Rams have to do is win, and they
Yeah.
win the NFC West. Chargers at the Pats. All they have to do is win. They're -4.5. And there's some subtle cases against them, right? Their offense isn't that good.
Yeah.
They have trouble getting first downs. It's the type of team, like, even if they had a lead, Drake May in the second half, like doing stuff. There's a Lad McConkey piece that I don't think can be undersold with the fact that the Pats had that pick, traded back 3 spots for a guy who basically doesn't play, who had played 3 snaps. McConkey's just him running amok in this game is almost a lock. I don't know what the player props are for him.
Yes.
And it just feels like a classic LA money parlay, and it's -114 on FanDuel, and I would like to partake.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go ahead and do that, and let's do it in a meaningful increment, because we both are believers, and that's some fantastic. I mean, the other sort of side to this. Remember how good favorites have been. Moneyline favorites have been absolutely crushing this season. Favorites 75% since week 5 in terms of outright wins. And favorites have been covering it nearly like 56 or 57% since week 5. Like both of those are, you look back 25, 30 years and those rates are all the way up there. So we're just doing the thing that's staring us in the face that helped us make money last week, helped us make money on Christmas. We're going to make some more money on Saturday, but I want to just add another wrinkle. Let's go ahead and do whatever you want on that Rams Chargers. We have to put the Colts in. Colts have to be a leg in every money line parlay that we do. Really, any kind of combination, the Colts have to be in every one of them. Just on the money line, Colts is beating the.
Welcome back to the Ringer Sunday pregame right here on YouTube and FanDuel TV. NFL fans, listen up. The final weeks of the regular season are here. Get an NFL Sunday ticket to watch the race to the playoffs for only $49. Yes, only $49. Sign up now and catch every game every Sunday. Terms and embargoes apply. Wise guys are back, getting you ready for Week 17. Let's go around the horn. John Jastremski, Joe House, Cousin Sal, and Raheem Palmer. We'll have our underdog, man's best bet of the week still to come. We'll have Danny Heifetz, who I'm sure has been busy getting ready for the fantasy championships. I actually engaged a little conversation with Danny earlier in the week because my Cuse fantasy team needed a little help to try to get propelled to the championship. So we'll run through some fantasy stuff, some wise wagers with him, and all the good stuff that we do. A couple of YouTube comments. Sal, you'll like this one. This one comes from Jeff Bruce. Apparently, you're greater than Santa. I don't know if I would agree with that.
Ooh.
Maybe your wise wagers would, but good for Jeff.
Does he mean fatter than Santa? Because he might have a good point there. Yeah, greater than. We have to look up what the greater than symbol. But thank you, Jeff. I'll try to. I don't want to lower your expectations. So let's keep winning. 15.
So
2,
when you visit the island of misfit toys and give those out, then I'll say maybe you're greater than Santa.
You
Is
got
that fair?
it. I got Harry waiting for me in a big fat elf costume. Yeah.
And listen, if you want to get involved with the show, we love it here on YouTube TV. And if you're watching on YouTube and you want to leave us a little feedback, question, a comment, whatever you do, check it out, submit it, and maybe we'll get to it a little bit later on in the show. Now, we have another good race in this particular 2024 season. The first was House and I finishing for 3rd place in the bronze medal. We'll see if we get that bronze medal when we go out to Los Angeles in 2 weeks. But it also comes down to our dog of the week. So let's buckle up. It's time for Man's Best Bet. Sal, I'm starting with you on this one because House hit on this game when we were doing our rat lines. And there's a lot of crossover with rat lines, with wise wagers, with man's best bet. We have a limited card to choose from. But you're taking a big swing here in a division game for your man's best bet.
Well, I have to, because House has a big lead, and I need to hit 2 big dogs to steal this from him. And I'm not too confident in the Panthers at plus 385, but there are a few elements to this bet. There's the House thing where I have to win 2 big ones, plus 350 or better probably in the next 2 weeks. Plus, I have a big bet on Tampa Bay to win the division. So what's better than the lowly Panthers to come in there, steal one in Tampa, in Florida, and lose my bet? But here's the other part. The lowly Panthers have a chance. They're in most of these games. They've covered 6 of their last 7. They played a few weeks ago against Tampa Bay. The team went to overtime. Cooper Rush really could have put up 40 against Tampa last Monday night. They're not as settled. They're a little scattered for a team that's about to make the playoffs potentially. So I don't know who's going to run the ball. Hubbard's out. Maybe Raheem gets some carries, but I think Bryce gets the job done. Why not? 26-24, steady Eddie Pinheiro kicks one through the uprights and wins it for the Panthers.
Now, House, you are going with the game that profiles this game of the week. I, for one, have no problem with it because there are not a lot of games to choose from. But I know a certain someone, if indeed he is awake and if he had his coffee and he's sitting in his pajamas, he better be fair and balanced on this one, because when I gave out Cincinnati back in the middle of the year as a 1.5-point underdog, I was roasted to the high heavens on the pod, and Sal and Simmons basically did 10 minutes of content at my expense. House, we'll see if you get the same treatment. If you don't, I may file a complaint before next week's show. But explain why the Packers are your dog of the week.
I mean, JJ, first of all, there's only 10 games to choose from because the NFL scheduled the whole slate, over the course of a full calendar week. Not a lot of options here, but I'm taking the Green Bay Packers on the money line. The number was even. The number is -102. The number's -104. It is what it is.
Lord.
We've talked about this game a little bit. There are just no choices in terms of dogs out there.
There are choices. There's 8 choices with a plus in front of the underdog. There's 8.
There are choices, Sal.
Don't say there's
there
no
are bad choices.
Yeah.
There are a lot of bad choices. I have to admit, House. A lot of bad choices.
I can't take Atlanta. That's against my my DNA. But we're gonna
really. You've been picking against the commies all year, but not outright. You won't do it outright.
I learned my lesson. Just a couple things to highlight with Green Bay. We've been talking about this quite a bit. Green Bay and Minnesota, all they do is split every year. Minnesota won earlier in the season at Green Bay, so it's Green Bay's turn. But really what I like is a version of Green Bay that's not that dissimilar from what we saw last year, which is them firing on all cylinders at the end of a season. They're getting their running back going. Josh Jacobs, one of the most dominant runners in this last handful of games. Jordan Love is hot, hasn't thrown a pick in over a month, at the top of a bunch of the analytics in terms of quarterbacking. And really, the Packers defense deserves a little bit of highlighting. They've allowed 20 points just once in their last 7 games, and that was against the Lions in what was an awesome Thursday night game. So I don't have any problem with going ahead, grabbing a win with Green Bay, and staying on top of the man's best bet pool.
Boo!
We shall see about that. I am taking
JJ, can I tell you something? You know what this is, JJ? You know what this is? This is Jose Reyes with the lead in the batting title in 2011, and he sits the last 3 at bat. Right? He gets a signal like, "Hey, coach, take me out of the game. Will you take me out?" This is what House is doing, sitting on his lead.
Do they put that on the trophy?
You know what?
They put an asterisk on the trophy?
I give you credit on that. This is basically the equivalent of Jose Reyes in 2011.
Yes.
We are going to try to be the equivalent of Ted Williams batting 400, making sure he's in the lineup in game 162 or 158, whatever it was back in the year Ted Williams hit 400. I know, all before all of our lifetimes. Raheem, let's get us back on track. You are going with the dog that is music to my ears because it happens to be my wise wager. You like him outright. Make the case.
House is sitting on the lead. I'm in last place. I'm trying the equivalent of a rock and jock 25-point basket because I got to do something to get back into this. I'm taking the Jets plus 390 on the money line. And, House mentioned how all the Packers and Vikings do is split every year. Well, the last 2 years, the Jets and the Bills have split each of the last 2 years. So, give me the Jets. I mean, you look at Josh Allen. He's really struggled against this Jets defense. The last 5 matchups, he's averaged just 215 passing yards per game with 7 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. And the Jets have 16 sacks in those last 5 games. And Josh Allen comes into this matchup with the elbow and a shoulder injury. So we might not see him scrambling as much because he wants to stay healthy for the postseason. And you look at Aaron Rodgers. He has 499 touchdowns. He's going to bring it this week, try to get his 500th touchdown, and hopefully in a win. So give me the Jets plus 390 on the money line. And honestly, whether this wins or loses next week I'm doing a money line parlay with a bunch of dogs because I'm trying to pass you guys.
Oh, see, I don't know if that's allowed. It better be at least like 10-1, and it better be as exotic as it gets, Raheem. But I like you taking a big swing, and hopefully it ends up being a profitable one for you with the Jets outright. All I need them to do is cover 9.5, and away we go. Now, I don't know if you and Sal are going to like this dog of the week, because I don't know where you guys stand on your Cowboys winning games. They've played really well for Mike McCarthy over the last few weeks. They won outright against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I know CeeDee Lamb is not going to be able to go and play come Sunday, but guess what? Jalen Hurts is not playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys defense is bringing it. Cooper Rush has played well. I don't know what the incentive is for Philadelphia, who's kind of entrenched in that number 2 seed in the NFC. They need a lot to happen here to go and get themselves a number 1 seed. I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys. I'm rolling the dice here at plus 295. Division game. Weird things happen in the division game. And hey, the Cowboys have been spunky. They've been competitive. They've been spirited. I'll take a shot. I'll get them a little under 3-1. Sal, I'm surprised you didn't make this case for your Cowboys. They've been playing well.
I'll tell you what. I don't mind it. I know where you're going with this. Pickett should not be laying 7.5 points. That's ridiculous. But I do feel like the Eagles don't want to start getting in a losing streak, right? They lost last week. If they lose this week and then they sit guys next week, I don't think that's so. I think they could edge it out, but I'm with you, JJ. This will be a fun one. We need the small ones, the moral victories. Speaking of moral victories, same game parlay. Let's do it. House,
I like it. Good transition. Jumping right in. Attaboy.
You know what? I felt bad about this, but the way House is manipulating this dog thing, I don't care about betting against his Commanders anymore. There should be a betting court, and I think Simmons should be the judge and see if this is kosher or not. But I'm going Atlanta, adjusted minus 3.5. Atlanta, over 17.5 points. Bijan Robinson, 100+ rushing yards. There's an outside chance Washington may not even need this game come Sunday night. Carolina would have to upset Tampa Bay. That would have to happen. Either way, I like the Falcons in this spot on an SGP to win by adjusted 3.5. Each of the last 6 wins have been by 4 points or more. I like over 17.5 points as a result. And Bijan Robinson wins the battle of the Robinsons in the backfield, gets his 5th 100-yard game. He had triple digits in 3 of his last 6 and 2 90+ yard games in there. So he'll thrive against the league's 4th worst rush defense. This all pays. What does this pay? Plus 445.
Like the exotic nature, getting wacky and funky with the idea of an alternate spread with the Atlanta Falcons. Thought about Atlanta as man's best bet, but too much PTSD from early in the year with the commies taking me down. So I'm staying away from that side. Okay, House. You're going with the game of the day. It's also your underdog, if you want to call it that, for Week 17. So what do we got?
Well, all I know is when I play an alternate spread on the Green Bay Packers, like plus 3.5, it's on the correct side. But look, we're just doing a little 4-legger here. I don't have to talk about Green Bay, why it makes sense for them to get 3.5 points in this context. Jordan Love over 1.5 passing touchdowns. He actually has been very good against the Brian Flores blitz and the Brian Flores defense. 7 touchdowns in the last 2 starts against it. Jaden Reed over 3.5 total catches. Christian Watson questionable, hadn't practiced all week long, and Reed had a really nice game in the first matchup between these two. 7 of 8 targets for 139 yards. Reed 76 yards against the Saints. So he's in the route tree. He's getting the catches. And then Aaron Jones, anytime touchdown. This is key for the Vikings. He has to get touches. He had 26 touches in their game against Green Bay earlier this season. Combination of both receiving and running. Anytime touchdown, he can catch one, and that counts. So I like this. This has been bouncing between about plus 485 and a little over 5-1. Anything in that range is good. Good for your pocketbook as we start the new year, fellas.
2 SGPs down. We'll have 2 more before we hit the noon hour on the East Coast. It's now time to go from the SGPs to our OMG. Can't believe we're making this bet. And there were a couple in here that really fit this description in more ways than one. Raheem, you really got funky with this one. What are we thinking for an OMG?
We're going to go with each team to score 1+ passing touchdowns in the 1 p.m. window. Those of you who are fans of this show, you know, last year we did red zone specials every single week. I don't think we hit any of them, but maybe we did 1 or 2. But I'm going to try it again because there's only 6 1 p.m. games this week, and I think that gives you an edge. And I also think there's going to be some extended garbage time in many of them. So with extended garbage time, only 6 1 p.m. games, I think you have a shot for this to hit. So let's take a shot. This plays 17-1. Bring it into the new year. Try something different. We'll see what happens.
Okay, Sal, you're not going with something that fits the 17-1 variety.
No.
However, you're giving us a long shot here for an OMG. I like it.
By the way, our Ringer specials, we're all over FanDuel. Check it out. We're all represented. It's fun. Look there on the site. But I found one outside of the Ringer specials that there will be a non-quarterback touchdown pass at 5-1. Now, FanDuel's still looking into it. I'm not sure if the New York QBs count as non-quarterbacks. They should at this point, but I like this one. Listen, Cortland Sutton, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, C.J. Wilson Jr., whoever the hell that is, all non-quarterbacks, all through touchdowns without cashing a quarterback paycheck. There's been 4 in 16 weeks. I bet at 5-1 odds we will cash in one of these 10 games. Maybe David Achane. Maybe, right, JJ? Could be Brian Robinson House. Raheem. Maybe it's Zeke Elliott. Throws a touchdown pass and then jumps right in the Salvation Army bucket. That'll be fun. 5-1. I think it's a little higher now, but go get it.
And I could see maybe some funky flair in the Brown-Dolphin game that has gross written all over it. Now, House, this fits your OMG. I don't think it nearly is as OMG as it would have been if Tua was starting on Sunday, but make the case for why either the Browns or maybe something else is going to be an OMG bet for you.
I have a confession. The confession is that I was going to take the Browns on the money line in my underdog selection, and they were already on the card when I was sitting down doing my preparation. Now, we all make our choices, and then we move on. I am still going to bet on the Browns in this game, and I also like the under. It's all the way down to 32.5, which is a historically low under, driven by 2 quarterbacks that probably don't belong in the NFL, and weather that seems to be potentially the worst weather game in all of this 2024 season. So under the total and the Browns to win. And I'm not going to make a case for the Browns. They have the better defense, and that's it. It's going to be a slop fest. No reason to watch it, but just try and get a little bit down on it and see if the ticket comes through.
I'll be dialed in. Listen, Miami still with faint playoff hopes. Get me to week 18. No, I'm just kidding. I just want to cash a ticket. Raheem, in all seriousness, a total that low, and I understand we're talking about some sloppy, disgusting weather conditions and 2 hideous quarterbacks. You're giving me a total at 32.5. I almost want to take a shot there and bet an over.
I don't want to take a shot here and bet an over. Not with DTR and Huntley. This game could end 6-3.
No fear of a defensive touchdown or 2, though?
No.
All right. Fair enough.
I mean, it's not like Jameis is out there. I mean, like DTR, they're going to both teams are going to run the ball heavily.
And I would not be surprised we have this game finish up in like 2 hours and 20 minutes, considering run script for the Dolphins, run script for the Browns. Then you guys might have talked me out.
I'm actually curious what an alternate under would pay.
We'll have to look into that. We still have about 45 minutes left.
This is the most bizarre slate we've ever seen in the NFL for a Sunday. Honestly, if you look at those 6 games and the quarterback matchups, Raheem, I don't know how you're getting 1 touchdown total out of the 6 games, let alone from the Spencer Rattlers and the Drew Lucks and the Cooper Rushes and everybody else. And JJ, the fact that your game is a 4 p.m., it's one of 2 4 p.m. kickoffs, that's insanity. What are we going to do today?
It's called the limited card. We'll focus up on Green Bay and Minnesota, and hey, we'll bet on a lot of bad quarterbacks because I think that's the options we have been presented.
It always works out.
Maybe it will give us a couple winners. That's all we could hope for. Last OMG bet, speaking of bad quarterbacks, I'm betting on Mac Jones. The Tennessee Titans, who I had as my underdog of Week 16, continue to be one of the worst teams we have ever seen when it comes to covering point spreads. Why all of a sudden is that going to change in Week 17? I was dumb enough to get on board in Week 16. We are not going to get fooled again. Let's take Jacksonville. Lay a small number. That's our OMG bet for Week 17. Now, we have some anytime touchdowns. We'll see. Are we going long shots? Are we going standard? Are we going chalk? Sal, Monday Night Football, your anytime touchdown awaits.
Yeah, I feel like Laporta gets a lot of good value here. A plus 190, has 6 total touchdowns this year. He has 4 in the last 6 weeks. He's a staple in this offense yet again. 6 of his last 7 games, he's had a big play of 19 or more yards. He averages a 27-yard catch over that span. 4th in red zone targets for tight ends, despite missing a couple of games. Goff loves him. I think Sam Laporta, strikes pay dirt. Plus 190, tad high for a guy heating up like Laporta.
Might have some thoughts, perhaps, on the game that Sam Laporta is playing in on Monday night for our SGP. That's coming up a little bit later on. Anytime touchdown for me, I'm going with a narrative here. Aaron Jones, big game against his former team. You're only laying a small number here at minus 140. I know Minnesota's got Justin Jefferson. They got Addison, and Hawkinson has come on. But I think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings are going to look to get Aaron Jones in the end zone. Small number, we'll lay it. He scores a touchdown in the game of the day. Raheem, you're going with Aaron Jones' former teammate to give me an anytime touchdown. This has been a guy you've been riding here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, we're playing the greatest hits. We're going with Devontae Adams plus 110 anytime touchdown. And, you know, Aaron Rodgers, he's thrown 499 touchdowns. And Devontae Adams wants to catch his 500 touchdown pass, and he's already caught his 200th and his 400th. And you look at Devontae Adams, he scored a touchdown in 4 straight games, and he's caught 6 touchdowns in 9 games this season. So Aaron Rodgers wants to throw that 500 touchdown to Devontae Adams. So let's ride this again. Let's ride it till the wheels fall off.
3 down, 1 to go. This guy had a monster game a week ago. He destroyed me in one of my fantasy leagues in the semifinals. Not ideal, but I like where you're going with this anytime touchdown. Who would it be?
Yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, JJ, but this is Jonathan Taylor time. The Colts are still alive in the playoffs. Barely there's a pulse, and they are playing this Giants run funnel defense over the past 3 games. Giant opponents have run the ball 54% of the time. He's going to get at least 22 to 25 carries, no Anthony Richardson to vulture goal line touchdowns, and the Colts don't want to put poor elite Joe Flacco in too much harm's way against the Giants. They're just going to run, grind and pound. That's what this is all about. Jonathan Taylor, anytime touchdown across the goal line, we get it done.
Like the logic, especially with Anthony Richardson not being active come Sunday. It means a lot more Jonathan Taylor inside the 20-yard line, anytime touchdown, lowly New York Giants. Where do I sign? Okay, we got 2 more SGPs to hit. Raheem, you're looking at a pretty gross game, but if it's a winner, it's a winner. That's all that matters. What's your SGP?
Yes, we're going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, over 39.5. Brian Thomas Jr., over 76.5 receiving yards, and Calvin Ridley, over 63.5 receiving yards. You look at this, both of these defenses stink. You look at the Jaguars defense, they're allowing like 263 yards per game, and they're dead last in defensive DVOA. So Calvin Ridley should be able to have a big game, and this is kind of like a revenge spot. They already played earlier this year, and Calvin Ridley, he got a ton of receptions, ton of yards, so I expect it again. And then you look at Brian Thomas Jr., last couple of games, 132, 105. And Mac Jones is starting to put it together. So I actually think this total is a little bit too low at 39.5. Our model makes this around 43.5. I know these 2 teams played early this year. You got like a 10-6 final. But I think you're going to have a bit more of a shootout with both of these teams. They're not playing for anything. They can play loose. They can light it up. So let's go with that. I think the same game parlay plays about 3.5 to 1. So I really like this one.
3 down, 1 to go. I'm looking at Monday night. The Lions and the Niners, 4-legger coming at you. Let's take the Detroit Lions, who, remember, lost to the San Francisco 49ers in heartbreaking fashion in the NFC title game. The Niners are completely cooked. Lions are not losing this game. That's number 1. We're going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown, anytime touchdown. All of a sudden, David Montgomery's not involved. There's more opportunities for other guys on the Lions to go and score touchdowns. St. Brown finds pay dirt. Jahmyr Gibbs, he's the number 1 running back. He's going to get the ball out. We saw what Devon Achane was able to do against that Niner defense last week. Gibbs, better offensive line, 70-plus rushing yards. We love that. And then for the Niners to have any chance in this game, they have to be able to run the football. Guerrero back from injury. Give me 50-plus rushing yards for him. This parlay, 4-legger, a little under 5-1. Nice way to start and kick off 2025. Here's a reminder, guys. FanDuel has bettors covered this NFL Sunday with a host of profit boost tokens to choose from, including the great double your winnings boost. Make sure you opt in on FanDuel so you can apply the different boosts to your favorite bets throughout the day. And that includes a 25% NFL SGP profit boost on all Sunday games. So if you want to take one of our SGPs, get involved, take that profit boost, take it up 25%, and you go from there. All right, let's take a look officially. Who's in, who's out for Week 17? Bummed about Tua. Hip injury, not going to play against the Cleveland Browns. Anthony Richardson, not going to play for Indianapolis against the New York Giants. Giants, surprised by this one. They actually need to lose the final 2 games to get the number 1 pick. Well, Malik Neighbor is going to give it a go. And that way I can win my bet from house as far as his overs are concerned. And was there any doubt? Devontae Adams for his buddy Aaron Rodgers, maybe trying to catch that 500 touchdown. He will play against the Buffalo Bills.
JJ, you got to let us know about the Tua stuff. I want to hear about that from Schefter on Saturday afternoon. You're an insider, Miami. You fly down there 6 times a season. I want to hear about that from you on a Wednesday, not before we put in our Colts-Dolphins teasers. Come on now.
I understand your pain. Hopefully Snoop Huntley will still deliver for you on that tease. That's all you need him to do is win the game. But, Mike McDaniel doesn't give me the insider info. Chris Greer most certainly does not give me the inside info. So I'm right there with you, Sally boy. I'm sorry.
All right.
Maybe at the Super Bowl in New Orleans, if we see the disc jockey walking around, because I'd love to have a conversation with him and break some bread and kind of figure out the inner workings of the Dolphins. Maybe I can plant that seed and network a little bit. So next year at this time, I get you that info.
All right, good. We'll help you out.
I appreciate that. Now, let's take a look at our Wise Guys picks for Week 17. And last week, there was a theme. The Lone Wolf was insanely successful. I had the Lone Wolf status with the Rams, ended up winning. You had a Lone Wolf status, Sal. I forget what game it was. You ended up winning. Now, let's take a look here. I'm staying with the Dolphins. Now, we got to correct that graphic right there, Jack. That is not 4.5. That line is down to, 3 or 3.5. So we got to be accurate on this. I am not getting screwed on the Dolphins if they win by 3, and I end up getting a loss on this. But, Sal, you're the Lone Wolf on the Vikings. Is this a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I kind of think it is. I mean, I labeled it as my stay away, but for these graphics, we have to pick something, right? So I just circled the Vikings. I think they need that Week 18 matchup between Detroit and Minnesota. I'm trying to think what else it would be. I guess it could be Seattle and right? Seattle and the Rams.
No, the Rams clinched the division yesterday.
No, they need strength of victory.
Stuff.
Victory.
But they're going to be there. They're going to be close. They might get it today in the next few hours. So, yeah, conspiracy theory, Vikings.
And Raheem, you had to be the only guy to go and take Joe House's Washington Commanders.
Yeah, I'm just not buying the defensive improvement for this Falcons team. And you talking about Michael Penix, his first road start. Like last week against the Giants, it felt like the Giants were going to go up 2 scores, and then Drew Lock threw a pick 6, and then that game flipped on a dime. And I think if that happens this week, the Commanders are going to run away with this game. And I'm calling it a conspiracy theory. I think the NFL wants the Falcons to lose that game. So now next week, you're paying attention to both the Bucs and the Falcons games for the division in the final playoff spot.
Well, you could be regardless, but it just would determine who has the edge. You know what I mean, Raheem? Whether it's Tampa winning in or whether it's Atlanta winning in. How's quickly? You can't quit the Giants, huh? I mean, my goodness, you're back to the well?
I had them, then I did quit them. Because when Joe Flacco got confirmed as the quarterback, I don't think I'm the Lone Wolf anymore. I switched my pick over, but it's fine.
So you're Indianapolis. All right, so you were not Lone Wolf on the Giants. All right, it happens.
It's okay. I know. Because Joe Flacco got confirmed over the weekend. I had made the pick earlier.
I didn't even know he was Catholic. Wow.
Late audibles, you never know what can happen. Danny Heifetz is going to join us. We got our Wise Wager recap, all that more. Final half hour, Ringer Sunday pregame coming your way.
Eagles Cowboys, that line has dropped too.
Pull
Still
it up.
dropping, huh?
Something's going on.
Yeah, 6.5. Well, Hurts might not play is what's going on.
Oh, okay. There we go.
And
There's
I had
enough uncertainty.
Yeah, I had wanted to do an alternate bet with Dallas to 4.5 when it was 9.5. It was like plus 172. That's now plus 126. Which I still like more than the 6.5. But so if we had the Cowboys and we do an over of like what 37.5, I don't know.
Well,
what are you thinking?
The total's at 39.5 in that game as it is. I'm worried.
What are you worried about?
Just messing with that game at all.
At all?
Like, yeah. What
do you think all the value's gone because of the Hurts thing?
Yes, that's exactly what I think. I would have loved Dallas. I love Dallas at 8.5. I loved them at 9.5. The 10 was an incredible number. Now down to 6.5. I kind of don't want to mess with it because Philly got enough with Pickett of like game. Pickett can play now, right? He got 3 quarters of real live NFL football, high stakes, high leverage, and they'll run an offense.
What are you doing right now?
I'm not.
Did you just make a Kenny Pickett case?
No. It's just like Philly being ready for the game case. That's what I mean. That's all I'm saying. He's not a guy that's like playing with the first team starters for the first time in practice this week. That's all the observation that I'm making. I have had enormous success riding with the Cowboys, and I'm so upset that they lost to Cincinnati.
So I couldn't interest you in Dallas plus 10.5 with the over of 30.5 at minus 115.
Oh, well, sure. That. Yes. Because now we're talking. Those are the numbers. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm into that. That's a good one.
The final half hour of the Ringer Sunday pregame right here on YouTube TV. Boys ready to rock for Week 17. John Jastremski, Cousin Sal, Raheem Palmer, and Joe House. We'll have Danny Heifetz in a little bit. We might make some New Year's resolutions. These should be entertaining. We'll actually monitor them next year to see how, steadfast and how persistent we are in trying to maintain these. But before we do any of this stuff, guys, you knew we were going to hear from him in the pajamas. He woke up on this final Sunday of 2024. We have a Bill Simmons Podfather insane teaser. All right, what do we got? Let's see a little. There you go. Okay. Wonderful graphic there. And here's the 4 bets. Colts plus 6 for the game. Jets plus 23 for the game. Dallas plus 20.5. Minnesota plus 12. Raheem, out of those 4, I think it's fair to say which one of those particular selections would scare you the most. It's got to be Minnesota, right?
It's by far Minnesota. And, I don't know if I said this before, but I actually have the Packers power rated higher than Minnesota. And you look at the Vikings, they've really overperformed their Pythagorean expectation. They're 13-2, but they have a Pythagorean expectation of a team who has won just 10 games. And this Packers team is putting up 30 points every week. And I look at this Vikings team, they haven't beaten anybody over the last 8 weeks. This is a huge step up in competition. So it would not surprise me if the Packers blew this team out. So that's what would scare me. But also, I think the Cowboys are a little bit scary too, even with Kenny Pickett out there, because CeeDee Lamb isn't playing this week. It would not surprise me if that game got out of hand.
Even with Kenny Pickett, 21 seems like a lot. To me, Sal, the Vikings are the scariest leg of the 4.
Well, first off, thanks again, Simmons, for giving us a minus 170 slop fest, whatever this is. But that said, I think they're all going to win. I do. And I actually think the scariest one is the Colts. Not because I think the Giants will beat them, but because it's a 1 score. These others are all too many points, I think, for the underdog or the Vikings, or I don't know what House calls the underdog in that game. But I think if the Giants, I don't know, there could be some dumb lateral play at the end and the Giants are up 3 and then they end up 9. I think that's the weirdest one, but this is probably a winner.
Yeah, I mean, there is only one underdog in the Green Bay, Minnesota game, and I don't know why he didn't grab the points with the dog. There's a clear dog in that game. The other thing that we need to make sure of, the Podfather does not show up in that beautiful suit. I mean, let's get the graphic showing the pajamas.
Can we get him in the pajamas next week? Thank you.
That's where he makes those picks. So
There have been some mobsters who walk the streets of New York in their pajamas, right, JJ, when they were losing it late in life? I'm pretty sure.
Of course. I mean, think about the Tony Soprano bathrobe. I mean, traditional like any other. Wake up, you have the Tropicana, you need a little pulp. You walk out and you get your morning paper and you go from there. I know walking out, getting your morning paper, nobody does that anymore. Okay. 2025 is upon us, guys. And it's time for all of us to contribute a betting New Year's resolution for the new year. I'm going to start. I got to believe in the Green Bay Packers. That is going to be my New Year's resolution. When I see a future that I like, it's time to go and take it. I know I gave Raheem the Kansas City Chiefs last year or last week. He gave it to me last year. I chose not to take it. We go from there. I will take the Green Bay Packers in a wide open NFC with their physicality on both lines. And I think they're capable of winning in Detroit or beating the Philadelphia Eagles. I think they have the team to do so. I still think you're getting a good number and a fair number at 12-1 for them to go and win the Super Bowl. So my New Year's resolution, stick with a future you believe in. I had the Packers at the beginning of the year for a better number. Let's hop on. Let's get a little bit more at 12-1. Let's do it. House, what would your New Year's resolution from a betting sense be for 25?
Yeah, so this is going to feed into both my approach to futures for the upcoming 2025-26 season, but also for this playoff run. And the bet that I'm getting down is the Baltimore Ravens to win the AFC at plus 700, the Baltimore Ravens into the Super Bowl. The theme of this resolution, defense is for losers. If you sit down and go through all of your preseason analytics and all of the smart folks that forecasted how the season might have gone, bunch of teams that were forecasted to have really good defenses, they are the worst underperformers in terms of win totals. You're talking about the Jets, grotesque against their forecasted win total. The Browns, the Cowboys, and then even more recently, look at the teams over the course of this season that had the highest rated defense, and look what those defenses have ended up in over these last handful of weeks. You're talking about Denver, who's on a losing streak, Philadelphia, who just got trashed by Jaden Daniels and my Washington team, Houston, whose defense is the only competent unit, but teams can put up points against them, and then Pittsburgh on their own losing streak now. The defense was supposed to be the thing that separated them. I want the team with the best offense as we go into these playoffs. It happens to be the Baltimore Ravens. I'm willing to grab that 7-1.
Different team with Derrick Henry. Can Lamar Jackson exercise a whole lot of demons that have plagued him throughout the month of January? That is going to be one juicy divisional round game. If we get Baltimore going into Buffalo, a rematch of a game we had earlier this year. Sign me up for that right now. Okay, Raheem, I know you're always thinking about what can change from year to year. What is a resolution for you from a gambling sense we got to make?
I want to play more alternate spreads for higher payouts. I mean, we've seen a ton of teams just absolutely take teams into the deep waters and drown them. You look at teams like the Detroit Lions. I mean, they were blowing teams out, and I feel like I could have capitalized on that by playing alternate spreads, getting some higher payouts. If you look at, dogs who win, I mean, you take the alternate payout and you're getting higher than what you would be just playing the money line. So I'm going to take the Commanders minus 9.5. A lot of people are talking about how this Falcons defense has improved, but look who they've played. Other than the Vikings, they haven't played many top-tier offenses. They played the Chargers, the Raiders, the Giants with Drew Lock. I think this Commanders offense might be one of the best offenses they've played in recent memory. So you got Michael Penix in his first row start, and I just think it's a really bad spot. So I'm going to lay the minus 9.5 with the Commanders. It pays plus 230. I think if the Commanders win this one, it gets out of hand. So that's what I'm doing.
Trust in your gut. Trust in your analysis. Getting better payouts. I see where you're going, Raheem. Okay, Sal. I know with your wise wager record, you're probably sitting there saying, well, what do I need to change in 2025? What do I have to do differently? There's always something we can change. So,
no, I
Sal,
have to change a lot. Yes. I can change
Everything.
a lot.
Everything.
By the way, hats off to Raheem. I forgot about that for a second. That it was less than a year ago. He had the Chiefs at 10-1. Wasn't it 10-1 to win the Super Bowl? No, that
Yeah,
won 4 games.
10-1 to win the Super Bowl right after they lost that
my
Christmas
God.
game against the Raiders.
Can you
And they were like
imagine
plus
having
7-1, Sal, going into that Miami game in the frigid cold. Or
Right.
6-1. It was still a juicy number, Raheem. I remember.
Nice job with that, Raheem. We should all be able to grab onto something like that. Listen, as my resolution, let me start off by saying I am a true blue American. I am a patriot like none other, and not the cheating kind in Foxborough, a real American patriot. I eat apple pie with my hands, hot dogs the same way. I don't know utensils for any of it. So, as a true blue American, I am staying away from the Army-Navy game. I know it's not a great resolution, but I cannot pick this game. It's the only game of that week, right? December 5th, December 7th, whatever it is. I cannot bet it anymore. It makes me hate the guys involved. I'll bet an under, adjusted total, whatever it is. I have to be done because I've lost like 6 years in a row, and I have to go on. Now, I'm going to make this work because I am an American. I'm betting America's team to score first, and that score first today will be a field goal plus 290, guys. How hard is this? Cowboys win the kickoff, right? They get 2 first downs, and then Brandon Aubrey, the greatest kicker of all time, puts it through the uprights plus 290. I think it's down to 240 now. You can get that on the FanDuel specials. Make America great for the Cowboys, at least this week, plus 290 to score first.
You better be rooting on the Cowboys to win the toss and actually take the ball, whatever the case may be, or you don't want to see Kenny Pickett give it a Saquon. He breaks one for 70, 80 yards. But, hey, Sal, first Cowboy score being a field goal, can't fault you on that.
Why not?
We'll see if it works out. Joe House, Happy New Year, my friend. Enjoy the festivities. I will use the worst joke in modern-day society. I'll see you next year, buddy boy.
Hey, in the meantime, let's all get down. It's 3-1 for that Browns Dolphins under 24.5. That's my parting shot. Good luck to everybody.
A parting shot with DTR and Tyler Huntley. Guys, give yourself the gift of NFL Sunday Ticket this season, and now it's only $49 for the rest of the regular season. Yep, only $49. Don't miss out on the biggest matchups in the race to the playoffs. Sign up today. Terms and embargoes apply. Let's welcome in Danny Heifetz. I don't see Snoopy. Maybe he's missing because my camera is blocking Snoopy. But Mr. Heifetz, Happy New Year, my friend. Welcome back to the Ringer Sunday pregame. How we doing, buddy?
Happy New Year to you guys. Thank you. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I can't get over Sal saying he hates the troops. I'm still kind of reeling from that one.
Yeah, very hurtful.
Man.
I agree. Very hurtful.
I thought
Sal.
people knew that already, but yeah, if it had to come out again, so be it.
You know, Heifetz, I think for Sal with the Army-Navy game, the key is just do the opposite. That's all, Sal. If you can't win the Army-Navy game, whatever your hunch is, do the opposite.
It's the Costanza.
That's right.
What I should have been doing throughout this entire season. Heifetz, speaking of New Year's resolutions, the idea of what we've learned and what we want to take into 2025, is there something you'd like to share with the three amigos here?
Yeah, I mean, Raheem kind of hit it just moments ago. My grandparents used to tell me to buy bonds. I've heard some of the boomers talking about S&P 500. I kind of think I should just put some money on the Chiefs money line every game until like 2043 or so, because I don't know. I'm kind of just done betting against Patrick Mahomes, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm tired of the Chiefs." I think this is actually a retirement strategy. I don't think Social Security is going to be around by the time I'm retiring. I'm just going to have to build myself a little nest egg. So I'm just going to bet the Chiefs money line literally every single game until Patrick Mahomes is in the Hall of Fame.
You know what? There are 401ks. There's the stock market.
401k.
There are all these different ways to invest. Yes, Kansas City finding ways to win. And I'll even advise you a little bit here, Heifetz. Just throw the future for the Super Bowl in your portfolio year after year after year, so that way you don't have to lay the crazy vig and you have plus money sitting in your portfolio at the end of the year. You know, Raheem, like you did with plus 650 that I gave you last week.
Yeah, most definitely. And I plan on adding more. I think, 3 or 4 weeks from now, whenever the Super Bowl is, the Chiefs will probably be down after they lose the first half of the Super Bowl. And then in the second half, you'll probably be able to live bet the Chiefs at plus money, which we've done the last 2 years. When they were playing the Eagles, I caught the Chiefs at plus 400. And then last year, I caught them at plus 300. And then there were parts of the Super Bowl against the 49ers where you could have got them 7 and 8 to 1 and even, 10 to 1 to win that Super Bowl. So just wait for them to be down in the Super Bowl, and then they're going to come back and win, and Patrick Mahomes is going to win MVP as he always does.
As predictable as it gets, and right now it's just tough to doubt the voodoo and the swag and the confidence that the two-time defending champs bring to the table. Okay, Heifetz, we have our wisest wagers for Week 17. Cousin Sal red hot. Raheem's locked in second. Me and House in a battle. See who's going to get that bronze medal. Let's take a look at our wise wagers. Sal going with a team total under for the Washington Commanders at 24.5. House feeling an under as well. Falcons Commanders under 46.5 total points. Raheem, and I like this wise wager a lot, Green Bay Packers plus the 1.5. And I'm getting down at 30, Heifetz. Jets, Jets. Little enigma for Aaron Rodgers to go and keep this game competitive. Don't need to win, just cover 9.5. What stands out with those wise wagers?
I actually, the one I really like, I love, Vikings plus 12.5, Colts plus 20.5. I love those 14 teasers, I love the.
Oh, come on.
No, I got to tell you, when Bill gave that one that he texted in, I got to tell you, all I could think was that's exactly what my dad tries to convince me to do on every Sunday is like some 14 teaser to move every line by 13 points. And my dad's the worst gambler in the entire world, maybe the history of gambling. So I'd stay away from that one. But honestly, the one I liked the most was actually not one of the wise wagers, but I copied. House had the one with Bucky Irving, and I actually had the exact same thing with Bucky Irving over 86. And JJ, I heard your little shot about bringing anytime touchdown Sierra, as a guest. I'm like, okay, all right, heard. But I will say, House is talking about Bucky Irving. He had 150 yards the last time he ran against the Panthers. Bucky Irving to have 150 yards today is like 8 to 1. I know 150 yards doesn't happen that much, but I like all the alts on that. So I would actually take the Bucks Carolina game, and there might be a little rain there. Also, Rachaad White fumbled the game away. So I actually would go so far as to say not only the Panthers have the worst run defense in the NFL, like House had mentioned, but Bucky Irving's might get the second most carries of his entire career today. Go Oregon, Sal, because I really don't think Rachaad White's going to get the ball a ton. He fumbled 2 weeks in a row. It's raining. I think Bucky Irving has maybe a career workload in Stowe because he had 26 carries the last time they played Carolina. So that's actually the one where I would lean.
Well, yeah, I mean, now we got to talk about these games, and I feel like we covered Panthers Bucks. I got to figure out what to ask you now on this game. All right, how about this? If you could spoon with any Panthers coach, past or present, who would you choose?
I think Dave Canales for Little Spoon, but Ron Rivera for Big Spoon, right?
That's exactly right.
Wow, you guys are missing out on John Fox and George Seifert. I'm disappointed.
John Fox, zero chance he's a generous lover.
Listen, he's got a type, Heifetz. What are you going to do? Yeah. Listen, I have the Bucks to win a division, so I am just ready for somehow the hammer to drop on me here. How are the Panthers? I mean, I think they called the Bundo up from the practice squad. He's going to get carries. Is there any way they could pull this off?
Yeah, I mean, Bryce Young's been playing well. I mean, it's funny. In football, going into the offseason, I'm just going to tattoo on my forehead my other New Year's resolution is like, don't have any opinions on quarterbacks other than the 4 good ones because the fickleness, I feel like everyone needs to have some humble pie because I remember thinking Bucks Panthers was a really good fantasy defense stash for Buccaneers in Week 17. Now I'm like, damn, this is a pretty good matchup for Carolina and Bryce Young. So, I mean, I really, after seeing Bryce Young have that drive against the Eagles where he really should have won the game, I'm not going to count Bryce Young out of anything. This is really like a short king battle between Bryce and Baker Mayfield, but I still think the Panthers have the worst run defense in the league. I know House alluded to this earlier, but the gap between how many rushing yards the Panthers have allowed and the number 2 Giants is the gap between the Giants at number 2 and the Steelers at 22. So it's hard to overstate how bad the Panthers run defense is, but I know we've talked this game into the ground, but also I guess that's what happens when, more than half the games today are between 2 backup quarterbacks, so it's a pretty rough slate.
Hi, Fitz. Really I can't think of a worse Sunday slate of quarterbacks than we've seen going into Week 17. It doesn't get worse than this.
So we might have, some horrible quarterbacks playing, but in this particular matchup, we have a Hall of Fame quarterback on the verge of throwing his 500th touchdown pass.
Joe Flacco.
With the potential MVP. So do you think the New York Jets are catching 9.5 today? Do you think they're dangerous and have a chance to beat the Bills? I mean, the wise guys, we all like the Jets. What do you feel about this game?
I have 2 quibbles with this. And I would also like to give you all the opportunity to, I understand when the pregame show has everyone picking the same team and it's the favorite. I would like to throw in two things and see if this changes your opinions. My quibble is that you guys were talking about, do the Bills have anything to play for? And I accept what you're saying about Josh Allen. He's the injury. Does he want to go full throttle taking hits? However, the Bills can't get this 1 seed now. So they win today. They are playing for a bye. The bye is week 18. If they win this week, they can take off next week. If they lose this week, they can't. So I would quibble with the motivation factor. I think if anything, the Jets defense is the unit most likely to have effort questions. I don't think the Bills will. I agree that Josh Allen's probably not going to be sticking out for stiff arms as much with that hand. The other quibble I have, the winds in this game might get up to 40 miles per hour. And if you ask coaches, wind can be worse than rain. If you remember that, ironically, Bills-Patriots game, the wind game from Monday Night Football a few years ago, wind at a certain point, it's like a threshold for arm strength where you either have enough of it to throw through the wind or you don't. That's why Mac Jones threw 3 passes in that game. He doesn't have enough. Josh Allen does. I don't think Aaron Rodgers at, 41 now? And he's got the Netflix doc. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has the arm strength to throw accurately through the wind, especially with this small margin for error offense that they insist on running. So I think the Bills are going to run this game because, frankly, I think the Jets are going to be really one-dimensional with Breece Hall running and a lot of short passes. Rodgers is allergic to turnovers. He doesn't want to throw interceptions. I think the Jets' offense is going to be very flat, whereas the Bills, they have options because they can push the ball downfield with Josh, but they can still run. So I really do like the Bills in this game, and I think the spread is justified.
So there's a caveat to that because you say you like the Bills, but do you like them winning by 10?
I hear what you're saying. I don't disagree with, other than the motivation, I don't distree with anything JJ said earlier because I agree. 9.5 points, I think that's the argument, is it's with the under. And if anything, you could, I guess, back in the day, you could have done a little teaser with the under and the spread together and kind of mush them together. But I understand that if you think it's low scoring. The flip side is it's week 17 on the Jets. Garrett Wilson is leaking that he might want out. It's the vibes are awful. I've seen too much of this Jets team over the last 4 months to be putting money on them to cover a spread against, to me, one of the 4 best teams in the league in Buffalo. And that trumps to me over the specifics of, it'll be close. I'm like, the Bills are great. And also, they do have a power running game. I think they could win this game.
The vibes are awful with the Jets. They find a way to lose every single week. That said, Heifetz, 2 games they've gotten blown out all season. San Francisco in week 1, Arizona in the middle of the year.
Arizona blew them out. Arizona sucks.
I get that. But there are plenty of teams that they've played against, teams that have needed to win the game, teams that are good. They played Buffalo in a tight game back on Monday Night Football middle of the year. I'm just saying the Jets will probably find an excruciating way to lose because that's what they do week after week after week. And then Buffalo will get that bye and that week off, and they could go at 60% and win the game. Anyway, let's move on to a different game. It's the game of the day, and we're dying to get your thoughts on this. I think the Packers can win the NFC. I think they're physical on both lines. I think Jordan Love, if he doesn't turn the football over, can make every throw on the field. I love the way that Josh Jacobs is running the ball. But yet, Heifetz, the Minnesota Vikings, to me, are one of the most well-coached teams that the sport has to offer. I'm in on the Packers being more viable as a Super Bowl team than Minnesota. Are you on the same page with that?
It's tough. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far because, to be honest, I think I'm a big believer styles make fights. And if you talk about the Super Bowl, I think the path matters just as much as anything. I'm a little wary of how this line has moved, and I think it's almost a referendum on these 2 quarterbacks because, as you just said, Jordan Love, I know it's sometimes reductive, but the turnovers are the biggest factor, and Jordan Love turning the ball over is the biggest factor in this game. Did it with Darnold, and that's actually, for all the coaches kind of hate analytics, the first thing analytics proved is everything coaches say about turnovers is correct. And I do think so much of the Packers' chances do come back down to whether Jordan Love protects the football. I know you guys talked earlier about the Packers-Vikings, that first game. It's not an accident, but actually, I mean this. This is a silly thing to say, but I mean what I think happened in that Packers-Vikings game. So Brett Favre had been diagnosed with an illness before that. And so Jordan Love showed up in a Brett Favre jersey to that Vikings game. And I think he said after the game that he had been watching Brett Favre highlights on YouTube the day before. And then he came out through 4 touchdowns, almost 400 yards and 3 picks. And I was like, he plays like Brett Favre. And that's the thing. Jordan Love aesthetically looks like Aaron Rodgers. But the way he plays is Brett Favre's brain. He's like, it's the two devils on your shoulder. It's just Rodgers and Favre talking to him all the times. And I think when the Aaron Rodgers Jordan Love shows up, who's averse to turnovers, the Packers are unstoppable sometimes. But the Brett Favre one is too often what happens to Jordan Love when he needs to go down and press. And that's what I want to see is, can Jordan Love rein in the decision making? And then the flip side with the Vikings, and where I lean toward the Vikings in this matchup, because I think that so much of what bothered Sam Darnold was the pre-snap confusion that he saw earlier in the season. And I think that that's going to be something that he's grown a lot, because he's got the off-script plays with Sam Darnold, but I think that there's going to be a lot more, frankly. He needs to get the offensive line right pre-snap, and I think that's something that he's going to be a lot better at than he was earlier in the season.
You know, we could do 45 minutes on Brett Favre's brain, and I think we should. Let's start. Let's go around the horn here. Raheem? No. I want to talk about Penix, Atlanta, and Washington. We got the two young quarterbacks, right? Obviously, Washington may actually be in if Carolina can pull off the upset before this game, the Sunday night game. Penix on the road. This is his second start. This is his first one on the road. And there's a highlight. How much of the fact that I am not on the receiving end of Penix's passes, as I was on Radio Row last year about this time, how much does that weigh into your pick of Washington? Look at that. Look where I am. Oh my God, I had to really kind of die
miraculous
for it,
catch.
to be honest.
Yeah. So, did it look
honest.
different coming off the left hand? Did that throw you off with the left hand spin?
Well, I'm a lefty too, so I imagined myself throwing me a ball. So yeah, it was fine. But you know, I had to adjust. But I don't know that the Atlanta receivers could do that today. What do you think?
I think Penix is going to be really good, man. I got to tell you, I think Penix is going to be fantastic. I think he's going to be good in this game. I think both these defenses are way overrated. You guys were saying earlier, Raheem, I believe, you were mentioning, and I agree that the Falcons haven't had to play anyone. The Falcons pass rush still stinks. I think that's going to be a huge issue. Like, if the Falcons cannot contain Jaden Daniels, he turns 4-second pockets into like 9-second pockets a lot. And like, there's nothing Jesse Bates is a great safety. It doesn't matter if Jaden Daniels isn't going to get any pressure. So that's my concern on the over, or sorry, you guys have the under on the 24 points. That's my concern. I think the rain, if it does end up raining in this game later tonight, then that could have a big impact. I actually kind of think it goes over, though, because I think Penix is going to be able to move the ball. He does everything right. I don't think that Giants game last week was a huge test, but I think Penix checked every box. It wasn't like outrageous. He didn't have to do anything crazy, but I think this is a really good offensive line and a really good receiving core for a rookie quarterback. And again, Penix, 13 Spider-Man movies came out while he was in college. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's got experience. He's got, he's not a normal rookie. So I think these are two 24-year-old rookies, and there's a reason they don't look normal. It's because they played like 50 games in college apiece. So I actually think this could be a weirdly mature game between two rookie quarterbacks.
So let's talk about one of the teams that, Michael Penix played last week. The New York Football Giants are catching 7.5 to the Colts. Does Joe Flacco make Danny feel better about the Giants continuing to tank? I mean, what happens this week?
If Giants win this game and cost themselves the first pick, I'm going to walk into the sea. I swear to God, the Giants, I think they slide out of the top 5 if they win this game. I'll lose my mind. Joe Flacco, I think, makes the Giants more likely to lose because I think Richardson's the wild. I mean, Anthony Richardson threw like 11 passes last week. He completed 7. So I still can't get over how much the AFC wildcard race would change if Jonathan Taylor just didn't drop that ball at the goal line. Like, that's going to come down and be the sliding doors moment of the whole season. I hope that the Colts win. As a Giants fan, I really need the Colts to win. I do think Joe Flacco's playing. And also, maybe I shouldn't say this live. I don't buy this Richardson injury whatsoever. I'm curious, you guys think soreness in his back? I think what happened is they benched Anthony Richardson. They brought him back. They said he's the starter for the season. And they changed their mind. And they don't want to say that actually we didn't mean the whole season. So now he has a back injury. But I think Joe Flacco's playing this week because he gives them a better chance to win. And the coaches don't really want to say that. So Anthony Richardson has an injury now.
Do you want Shedeur on the Giants?
I do. I flip-flop all the time between him and Cam Ward, but the Giants have to take a quarterback for the simple fact that, like, if they're good and you pass on them, at the end of the day, you only get so many shots. And again, people are like, oh, it's a bad quarterback class. Okay. Like, in late September, Bryce Young was like in Zach Wilson bust territory. And by November, people are like, the Panthers don't even need a quarterback. Bryce Young looks so good. You take shots. If you're telling me there's a 1 in 3 chance with one of these guys instead of a 1 in 5 and 1 in 2, you have to do it anyway. So I think the Giants have to take a quarterback. I'm cool with Shedeur.
Hi, Fitz. I would keep drafting quarterbacks until you have one. I mean, who's to say the Giants can't draft one of these kids, stink up the joint? Hey, you don't like where you're at? You got a top pick? Take another one. Finally, Cowboys and Eagles. I'm with two Cowboy fans. They've been spunky down the stretch. Eagles don't have Jalen Hurts. CeeDee Lamb's not going to play. Can the Cowboys go and win this game outright?
They could if Kenny Pickett turns the ball over, but I think even a Nick Sirianni / Big Dom coach team is going to understand that the main responsibility here is throw enough balls to A.J. Brown to make him not mad, and then just don't turn the ball over. And I think that as much as Jalen Hurts expands the Eagles' rushing offense and makes all the lanes larger for Saquon, frankly, I don't think it matters if the Eagles are a quote-unquote one-dimensional offense with Saquon this week just because Kenny Pickett's there. Like, it is hard to overstate how much of an imbalance there is between how good the Eagles offensive line is and how, sorry, Sal, bad the Cowboys run defense is. That it doesn't matter. And I think that there's still like a Red Sea element to this game today. And that Saquon, I think if Jalen Hurts is playing, there'd be a shot for 200 in this game. With Jalen Hurts, I think it's merely 120.
What's the, what do we get for Barkley now to win is it plus 130 now to win that thing? What is it now? Plus
MVP or to get to 2,000 yards?
Plus 190 to break the record. He's at 1838. Was he have to average 134 over the last two?
Yeah, that sounds right. Sal, as someone who you guys remember this pre-16 game season, and I don't. How much does it bother you that we're talking about these records as if does it bother you that you're like, oh, Eric Dickinson did this in so many games? Like Brock Bowers might break the rookie yards record for a tight end. Mike Ditka did that in 12 games 50 years ago. Like at some point, we got to figure this out with the records.
It bothers me a little bit, not as much as Eric Dickerson, who might commit homicide, which would be really out of the box for a running back, an older running back. But yeah, it does bother me. I'd rather him get it this week.
I can't believe it just went there. Yeah. Tremendous job by you. Heifetz, quickly, you got 30 seconds. Biggest takeaway and lesson for a guy who lives, sleeps, eats fantasy football. It's your biggest fantasy lesson for everybody after 24.
Fantasy football is really stupid. Just start gambling and watch the show every week.
I agree. The teams in which I had top picks, they stink. The teams in which I had bottom picks are still playing. Tells you basically all you need to know, right? Heifetz, that kind of year.
That's why you got to play in an auction draft. It's the best way of drafting.
Oh, I agree. Although the problem is it takes about 6 or 7 hours. So it's a give and take, Raheem. It may be more enjoyable. And one of my leagues, by the way, is an auction. But I'm sitting there 4 or 5 hours into this thing saying, come on, man, enough. Can we pick up the pace? Anyway, that's going to do it for this edition of the Ringer Sunday pregame. Danny Heifetz, thank you for joining us. It's good to see your face. Happy New Year, and hopefully the Giants cooperate and lose the last 2 games, okay?
Thank you for having me. If the Giants win today, you'll never see me again, so hopefully this wasn't my last time.
Guarantee that. Don't worry. I think you're okay. I think Indianapolis will find a way. For Cousin Sal, Raheem Palmer, JJ, John Jastremski signing off. We will be back for the regular season finale of the Ringer Sunday pregame next Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.